If you have money in FTX, pull it out immediately. That is what every finance YouTuber has been saying for the last week after they've been pushing this whole thing for the last year. Now, to sum up this entire thing, if you were to invest in FTX, they take your money and they reinvest it into a shitcoin, which is worthless. Now, on paper, you are getting richer and you feel safe because the company is massive and worth billions of dollars, but in reality, while FTX is getting bigger, all they are offering you is a mouthful of piss, because in reality, it is not real. Unlike the white subscribe button underneath this video. Now, by this point, I'm sure everybody has heard the news that FTX has been falling apart completely. As of this point, they are pretty much no longer a company. So if you had money invested in that crypto exchange, unfortunately, things are not going to look too good for you. Hopefully, you were able to get your money out in time, and if not, hopefully there will be a way for you to get your money back in the future, although right now things doesn't look too good. Now, I'm sure I don't need to explain to you who Sam Bankman-Fried is. He describes himself as an American entrepreneur and investor and also a billionaire. In fact, he considers himself the world's most generous billionaire because his intent was to give all of his billions away, even though he gave very little of that away while he was rich. Now, he is the CEO of FTX and FTX US, or at least he used to be. Now he's probably just going to be inmate 4576. Now, if you don't know what FTX is, I'm not going to use this entire video to explain it, but pretty much it is a type of crypto exchange. So if you want to sell something, they will find you a seller. If you want to buy something, they are going to find you a buyer. Now, FTX is massive. It is the second largest crypto exchange in the world. Now, they also have massive endorsements next to their names. People like Tom Brady, Stephen Curry, TSM and the Miami Heat were all involved in some way or another with them, and on top of that, the CEO was also a massive donor to the American Democratic Party. In fact, he was the second biggest donor to that campaign in the last year, or at least he pledged to be. I don't know how much of that money he actually donated to them, but he did pledge over $1 billion. But I do think right now it's probably going to be very unlikely that he's actually going to be paying up. Now, to be honest, when it comes to the whole cryptocurrency thing, it is something that I never really got into, and that's just because I don't truly understand it. I don't really have too much of a strong opinion one way or the other, but I always felt like it was just a little bit too much of a risk for me to truly get involved in it. Although I do appreciate blockchain, on which cryptocurrencies are built and what that can potentially do going forward, I'm still not a fan of the product that they are pushing out. I pretty much consider blockchain technology the same way I would consider a printer. I think the technology behind the printer is absolutely groundbreaking. I think it completely revolutionized the generation. It brought us the printing press. It is pretty much responsible for the way we disseminated information for a very long time. The technology is great, but it doesn't change the fact that when you press the print button, a worthless piece of paper comes out that for the most part really isn't worth anything. And although I appreciate the technology that gave me that piece of paper, the piece of paper is still just a worthless piece of paper. And that is pretty much what I deem to be blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. I appreciate the technology that goes into blockchain, but it doesn't change the fact that when you have an NFT or you have a cryptocurrency, it is still pretty much useless for the most part. Now, how did this entire crash happen? Again, I tried my best to do some research. As I said, I'm not a subject expert, and there's probably going to be people that is way more equipped to explain everything that is going on, but it pretty much for the most part, or at least a big factor to it, came down to liquidity. Pretty much what would happen is you will invest your money into FTX. They will then take your money and reinvest it. Now, when you want your money back, that money is not available because they reinvested it. And when a large enough amount of people want their money back and it's not available, as you can imagine, that can cause massive problems. Now, the unavailability of funds is not always a bad thing. This is a very common business practice that banks use. This is a very common business practice that large corporations use. When you go to the bank and you invest your money, they will then also reinvest it. But the banks are regulated. And they are also protected because an entire country's economy revolves around the banks. So when push comes to shove and you want your money back, you are at least somewhat insured that you are going to get your money back. And even if that doesn't happen and there's a banking crisis or there is a stock market crisis, the government is going to bail you out because they obviously do not want their entire economy to fail. Now, when it comes to the normal stock exchange, that can obviously also be very volatile. It is also entirely speculative, but it is also a lot more stable because it is regulated, at least for the most part, and it has the entire backing of a country, the entire backing of their military might and their economy behind it, so people do consider it to be a lot more safe. This type of crypto stock exchanges is a lot more volatile and there is no regulation. It is decentralized, and that means it is also a lot more unstable. Now, FTX unfortunately takes it to a completely different level. In fact, the CEO even brags about the fact that it is entirely a Ponzi scheme. So if you take that into consideration, you can imagine how much worse it is. But it actually gets even worse than that because the CEO is taking your money and is also reinvesting it. But unlike a bank that will be reinvesting it in a lot more safer investment, when it comes to FTX and Sam, the CEO of the company, he's taking your money and he's investing it into shitcoin. Now, when a large amount of people want their money back, they cannot get it back because the money is invested. And now they need to sell all of that shitcoin in order to get the money back. And when they need to sell that shitcoin, it has lost a lot of its value. And the more you sell, the more over-exaggerated the market becomes, crashing the prices of those shitcoin, meaning that there is no way for you to get your money back. One person kind of explained it in a very good way. It was the best analogy that I could find. He pretty much compared it to a Pokemon card or a baseball card. You would take your money and you would invest it into a baseball card. That baseball card, for instance, is worth $300,000. But now you take everybody's money and all you do is buy a bunch of baseball cards. Now the people come in and they want their money back. But they cannot get the money back because all of the money is invested into baseball cards. Now, those baseball cards might be worth $300,000 if you sell one of them. But if you need to sell 100,000 of them, the market becomes over-exaggerated and the value of those baseball cards drops. So meaning even if you sell them, you are not going to get your money back, which means that you are not going to be able to give the people their money back. And that is pretty much what happens with FTX due to the fact that they invested all of the money into worthless shitcoin. There was no way for them to get the money back, which essentially just means that a massive crash happened and the entire thing just came crashing down and now had to close down. Now, I do still believe that there is some people within the FTX company that pretty much made out like bandits. There's still a lot of people, although you are not going to get your money back, I do still think that a lot of these people are going to walk away with a lot of money. They say that over $1 billion of investor assets is missing, and that happened after the whole collapse, and allegedly somebody hacked the entire company and took all of that money out. Now, it's unclear whether the CEO had any involvement in removing that money, but common sense would dictate that he might have something to do with it, allegedly. Now, a lot of people are also pointing fingers to FTX's biggest competitor, Binance, and their CEO, because it was in fact their CEO who made the first tweet that said that he was going to get rid of his FTX tokens, and that kind of snowballed in everybody else who wanted to get their money out too, and essentially that's how the whole crash happened. Now, the Binance CEO did say that he did not maliciously try to get the company to go under. He said that there was no master plan or anything like that, but I am not so sure whether I believe him or not. I do think that this entire FTX thing was built on a complete house of cards, so they were going to collapse sooner or later. Anyways, there were no way that they were not going to, but there is some speculation that everything just kind of snowballed a lot faster after the Binance CEO came out and made that tweet. Now, he kind of shot himself in the face as well, because when the one falls, the other falls as well, and he's also now lost a lot of his own value within his own company. Now, it is unclear whether his company will go down. Right now, most people seem to think that it won't. They kind of believe that it's a little bit too big to fail, very similar kind of to some other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, which most people believe will still recover even though it's going through a massive crash right now. Most people do think that it could potentially still stabilize, and people kind of view Binance similarly, but there is no denying that the entire crypto space right now is going through an extremely difficult time, and I'm just not sure how it is actually going to recover. Now, one other thing that I wanted to just briefly touch on is obviously when it comes to the content creator side of things. Now, for a lot of people, there has been a lot of debate because, as most people probably know, if you watch YouTube within this space, I'm sure you've come across a content creator that was sponsored by FTX and was pushing all of this to the audience. In fact, there might be a direct link between a content creator advertising FTX, you seeing it from that content creator and investing because you trust him, and now you losing your money. Now, the big debate kind of becomes how much of a responsibility does those content creators bear when it comes to this entire crash. Now, some people do say that there need to be some sort of individual responsibility. When you see an ad on a TV for new shoes, nobody is forcing you to go and buy those new shoes. You know that it's an ad. You know that the people within the ad are being paid to say the things that they say about the shoes, and if you choose to go and buy those shoes, that is entirely on you. Nobody is forcing you. And when it comes to these YouTubers who are taking these sponsorship deals, a lot of people feel like individual responsibility is also warranted. However, you also have the opposite argument to that, where they say, no, you build up a trust with your audience. Your audience will trust you. So when you are, for instance, a finance person and you are pushing FTX, you have a responsibility to make sure that you do the proper research. And yes, you can say that the person watching also has a responsibility, but a lot of that still falls on you. Pushing things that you know is shitty, or even you don't bother to find out whether it's shitty or not, is still a really crappy thing to do on your part. You're essentially pushing things out to your audience. They trust your opinion and they invest because of the recommendation that you made, even though you say this is not financial advice. And then these type of things end up happening, and I do think that there need to be some burden of responsibility on content creators to be more responsible when it comes to the things that they push out. For a lot of these content creators, they're already making millions upon millions of dollars every single year. They don't need to push sketchy adverts off on people, sketchy sponsors off on people, but they still do it because making money isn't enough. They need to make all of the money. Now, I'm trying not to judge too much because I don't know what it's like to be tempted on that level. I can't even imagine what they are being paid. It is very similar to what these crypto casinos are paying these Twitch streamers. It is very similar to the NFT space. I don't know what FTX paid these finance YouTubers to peddle all of this, but I'm willing to bet it's a lot. The unfortunate truth is, though, these people are already making a lot, so there really is no need for them to push sketchy stuff. And I do think that there is some level of responsibility that the content creator holds. Now, I'm already seeing people kind of defending these financial YouTubers, completely making excuses. Like I said, I'm kind of split in between when it comes to what I think about it, but I do think for the most part, content creators need to take more of a responsibility when it comes to the type of things that they push. They know that they have influence, which is why we call them influencers, and if you're going to peddle a bunch of stuff, your audience is going to trust you and they are going to want to support you, because that's also a big way how a lot of content creators push their sponsorships. They pretty much sell it as, listen, I'm not making a lot of money on ad revenue, and if you want to support the channel, support the sponsor. If you want to support me and the content that I push out, click the link in the description and support my sponsor, because by supporting the sponsor, you're also supporting me. So now people go and they want to support you because there's this trust that you have built up with your audience, and they want to support the content that you made. So when you push out all of these garbage sponsorships, I do think that it's kind of a bad thing to do. And I do think that a lot of content creators need to take a very deep look at the type of stuff that they are pushing out to the audience. And I do think some level of responsibility lie with them and the type of things that they peddle out to their audience.